Welcome back to another episode of Atomic Authors for the Plot. We are super excited to introduce you guys to Francesca Riccardi.
Yes, we're so excited. If you're interested in getting into the publishing industry, hearing her manuscript wish list, or just anything related to writing, please stay tuned.
Hello!
Hello. Hi, how are you both?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. It's great to see you both.
So
Yes.
lovely to see you. I was wondering if you would be willing to just say your names, pronouns, give a little bit of an intro before we dive into questions.
Absolutely. So I am Francesca Riccardi and I am she, her, and a little bit of an introduction about me. I am a literary agent and I've been a literary agent for about 3 years. And before that, I worked in publishing for over 15 years. So I've got lots of just general publishing experience on both sides of the table there.
Awesome. And then would you want to share a little bit just about your dogs and maybe I think gardening as well, kind of what you do outside?
Yeah. Oh, so I've got so I live in rural Lincolnshire now, which is not too far from where I grew up because I've worked for years and years in London and near London. But I've moved back home now to be a bit closer to my dad and family and things like that. So I've got 2 rescue dogs that when I'm not working, I like to take out for walks and that kind of thing. But we've also started fostering dogs recently. So I've got 2 foster dogs here as well at the moment. So there's 4 dogs in the house. And so, yeah, and I do like gardening, but at the moment, because there's 4 of them, they're kind of ripping the place up. So, yeah, and I like that. And I obviously like reading. I love watching telly. I love going out and finding cool historic places to explore and stuff like that. So just interested in lots of things.
Yay. Thank you so much.
That's all right.
I'm fangirling right now because I'm always in your lives.
You are, yeah.
So I feel like I'm whoa, she can hear what I'm saying right now.
It's so weird because I feel like we've chatted so much and I feel like I just sort of know loads about not just you, but the other people that come all the time. It's just so weird because I talked to someone else. I talked to a book talker called Charlotte Book Besties, I think she's called. And I spoke to her yesterday on a call and I was just like, this is wild. Look at us talking to each other. Yeah.
I know, in real time. I don't have to type for you to see what
I know, yeah. You're not limited to the character limit. What a life, hey? What a great day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we're super excited to meet with you. We're so excited that you were willing to be interviewed. So thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, Maddie, sorry. I feel like I talked a lot. Do you want to dive into questions?
Sure. So, you do the online type of videos, calls with other people. And so have you found that has affected the types of queries that you get or the quality of the queries?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's really publishing is a very old business, and traditional publishing has a certain type of person, running the show, shall we say. And over recent years, when I first started working in publishing, there was Twitter was just about kind of becoming a thing, but it was still very small. And blogs were a thing as well, written blogs, but there wasn't much kind of video content, and there certainly wasn't the accessibility to people like there is now. Obviously you could have a Skype, but Skype was don't know if you've used it, total shit, and no one really sort of bothered, and so it's just such a different type from when I started. It's such a different time now because there are so many different types of social media, and what I love about being able to talk to people direct and to it's frightening obviously putting your face out there and speaking to people because you leave yourself open for all kinds of things like we all do every day. Everyone's just open to a lot more criticism these days because everything is so open online. But what I've found is that actually it's enabled me to have a direct line through to people who are writing, so I can speak to them in real time about worries they have, about common questions they have. And there's a couple of reasons why this is important. The first one is that not everyone knows how to access information about publishing or literary agents, or how to query. And secondly, because it makes the whole just everything more accessible and breaks down the kind of myths in the publishing industry. And I think that the publishing industry can feel so impenetrable as either a writer or someone looking to work in publishing or anything else like that. I think it's really important for people to be direct about publishing being a business, and these are the kinds of things that are going to work in publishing, and these are the kinds of things that are not, and these are the reasons why. And just having that conversation, because if we have no writers, or if writers that we want to hear from can't access us, then we have no books and there's no publishing industry. So it's really important for me to be doing that. And what I found actually is the kinds of submissions I get now, since I started putting things like my wish list out as a video, and since I started doing lives on TikTok, I'm getting a lot, more things that are more aligned with the kind of stuff I'm looking for. And very often as well, they might reference, oh, I saw you on this podcast, or I saw you in like this magazine, or I came to a TikTok live and saw you there. And it's nice as well, because something I always say is that publishing is such a people business. Like, we're all kind of relying on each other to do a good job, that when you're building those relationships, having a kind of idea of what someone might be like and whether you think you can work with them is really, really, really important. Because, and I will say this about 100 times probably, publishing is a business, and it is a people-based business, and it's an art-based business, but it is a business, and people do need to make money off the back of it. So it's changed enormously, like the kinds of queries I'm receiving, but just how people are engaging with me as well, I think, as an agent. So yeah, sorry, that's a really long answer for you probably thought it was going to be a really short question.
No, that was so great. And it's really helpful as querying authors to hear about the back end and be reminded that it's a business. May I ask, kind of, did you always have this mindset of knowing it's a business, or did you kind of have to learn that along the way in your career?
Yeah, I did have to learn it along the way, because when I started working in publishing, I actually started by transcribing books for blind and partially sighted people. And I wasn't thinking about publishing as a business then at all. I was thinking about publishing, and I was thinking about creating accessible books for people that otherwise wouldn't be able, can't read a print edition for whatever reason. It's not always blind and partially, sighted readers. It could be dyslexic readers, or, readers with other neurodiversity. So in my head, it was just kind of, that's like a nice thing to do. Like, it's the right thing to do to make sure that everyone has access to the same kind of books and information. But when I moved into publishing, and I think this is the same with anyone who's worked in publishing, you go in there and you're like, I love books and I love reading and all of that kind of thing. And I think when you get into a publisher, you very quickly realize that yes, you might love these books and want to publish these books. However, you're going to have to, as someone in a publishing house, jump through a lot of hoops, because you have to get the rest of the team invested. And the rest of the team will be sales, marketing, rights, publicity, all the people who are going to help sell the book. So an editor is like the primary champion of an author in-house, but it's all the rest of the team that are doing the kind of direct selling to like retailers, libraries, stuff like that, book subscription boxes. And of course, it's those people who will be doing the direct selling to where we want all the books to end up ultimately, the reader. So yeah, you kind of, as you go through different, because I've been in a few different roles in publishing, but because the back end of my career has been sort of sales, marketing, and now agenting, I've always had this sales head on of like, well, what is the hook for this? Where is it going to go? Who's going to read it? And having all of that kind of idea in my head up front means that I can make better decisions for my clients, more business decisions, and I can kind of explain them as well. And that's how we need to work with our clients. And of course, there is this element of, you've written this thing, you've spent hours and hours creating like this book, this world, these characters, and someone to reduce it down to a product is perhaps a little bit soul destroying. However, that product will go on to hopefully delight, many, many readers in the future.
Yes, definitely. I love that you're talking about the whole accessibility aspect of it because I think that's a very important thing in the publishing world, whether it's in the format or the content or even people behind the scenes. Um, how do you think people can, get more involved and support that kind of endeavor?
I think it's important when it's really hard. So I have, and I didn't mention this earlier because it's not affecting me currently, but I have a disability. So I have a hearing disability. I'm deaf in one ear, and normally I can manage that by wearing a hearing aid, and I can manage that by saying to people, for example, could you walk this side of me and speak to me here, or can we have a quieter, smaller room, or things like that. And it's fine now because I'm wearing headphones, but if I were out and about, it's something that's noticeable because I can't hear a lot of things. And I think that for years and years and years, it's quite embarrassing to have something like that, and you don't really want to talk about it. And I think that as I've got older and more grumpy, I'm just a bit more direct with it. And if something isn't working for me, I go, why isn't this working? It should be working. And if I can't hear it, no one else can hear it. And you know what I mean? And so it's up to us when we see a problem with a lack of accessibility in the publishing industry, or in any industry for that matter, to say so. And it's annoying because we shouldn't have to say so. And publishing and all industries, I think, go through these peaks and troughs of, oh, we're going to really concentrate on accessibility or diversity or whatever it is at the moment. And all of these things kind of overlap. And I think what it's really important for us all to be doing, whether we're people working in the industry or readers or retailers or whoever, is just constantly making sure that everyone, all of our customers, whoever they may be, have everything in a format that makes sense for whatever readership there is. There's not just kind of one demographic of readership of one book. This is why publishers are concentrating so hard on audiobooks at the moment. It's very hard these days if you get a top 5 publisher for a deal, it's very hard to kind of carve out audio from that deal because they'll want to produce everything at the same time. So there's a group called ADCI, which is Authors with Disability and Chronic Illness. They have I did a talk for them, and they have it's like a form that you can give to workplaces, businesses, anyone who's managing other people or producing things for other people, which just kind of interrogates their own practices a little bit. So I think in terms of creating an accessible, open environment for publishing and a safe space as well, when I say we, I mean those of us who feel able to and comfortable to should be challenging things when they're not quite good enough, and not be doing that with fear. And it's hard, but ultimately, if someone told me I couldn't read the new whatever book is coming out, because of some stupid reason, like the publisher couldn't be asked to, make it as an ebook or something, I'll be raging, So yeah, I think it's just making sure that we keep sort of banging the drum for things that we think are important to see in the industry. Having these things represented in the books themselves as well, so that they are normal is the wrong word, but so they are visible and accepted, and everyone can kind of experience that. I'm still looking for a book with a deaf character because I do not have that yet, but we'll all have certain things that we will resonate to a little bit more because they chime with our own experiences, and books need to reflect the wider society.
Wait, thank you so much for sharing about your own experiences with it. I think it's
That's
so
okay.
to know about other people who are experiencing kind of navigating a world that isn't always built for people who have this other experience. And I was wondering, I think a lot of authors maybe have a misconception about, oh, well, if this author has a leg up because they have a disability and they can talk about it. And I was just wondering if you could speak to that at all as a literary agent.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes I do get queries that will specify, you know, I'm a disabled author, or I am a neurodiverse author, or I'm a Black author, or I'm a queer author, or whatever it may be. They may specify those things, and I feel like authors sometimes specify them because they just want you to know. Fine. Sometimes specify them because maybe their characters are not authentic without them being the writers of those specific characters. And sometimes I think they specify it because they think it might be a leg up, honestly, because you see all these buzzwords in publishing, and ultimately what we as agents are going to do is judge something based on the writing. You know, that's what I do, is judge things based on the writing. It's a really difficult kind of area to get into. I will sort of touch on it in a minute, but I always say to people, that you don't have to disclose anything at all to your agent unless you want to, unless you think it's relevant. I've been working with clients for, you know, ages, and then just had them disclose something to me like last month or whatever, because they've believed it's become relevant, or they've believed it's the time to tell me. It's completely up to individual writers what they disclose and when. I think it's really important, like, it's really difficult because as agents we really want a diverse list of people with diverse experiences, and we will be judging things on the writing itself, but we also have to have in mind, you know, we wouldn't want to ever just take someone on because they're like ticking a box, because that's offensive to everyone. So it's quite tricky, because something that's in my mind a lot as well, because I'm also a working class literary agent. You know, my family hasn't come from money and had very kind of like blue collar jobs. Is that I kind of got this in my head as well, that this is another reason why I do so much on social media, because I think that traditionally the reason you would know about literary agents is because you'd know people who knew them, or you'd live in the right area, or all of that kind of thing. And I think that with more diverse voices, I find them on social media more than I find them kind of like in my queries, because they've just found me from knowing how to query, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think I've gone on a long one again, but basically I just think it's up to an author, a writer, what they disclose and when, and why. It's, you know, it's not up to me to tell them like you should or shouldn't tell me this. Like, I don't mind. What I would say about an agent is, and something I always say, is that agents are completely unshockable. You will never tell them something that's going to like make them go oh, or whatever. Like, we are just completely unshockable because we spend all day with a poker face on, you know, trying to negotiate the best deals for our clients and trying to get the work done. So yeah, it's a big discussion. It's something that plays over in my mind a lot, and I guess my way of kind of getting around things is to try as much as possible to be reaching those people without them having to come in my inbox and list all of their like box ticking things that may be seen as like box ticking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that it's very important to kind of have that information out there a little bit more, because some people don't feel comfortable sharing that stuff, but they might feel pressured. So thank you for sharing that. I was wondering, do agents negotiate the more accessibility aspects of a book, or is it something that's strictly the publisher?
An agent will negotiate the contract of a book, and in the contract of a book there will be what we call the grant of rights, which is basically, and it's at the top of every contract, and it will say you know, that the author is granting these rights to the publisher, and that will typically be what territory they're publishing in, but also what formats they're publishing in. So in terms of accessibility, as in getting as many editions out as possible, the agent will negotiate that, yes, if something isn't listed in a contract, like large print, for example, isn't always listed in a contract, that would mean that the rights are retained by the author, and then the agent or the author, you know, depending on whether you've got an agent or not, can go and negotiate those rights separately. In terms of the accessibility of the books themselves, that is the publisher's responsibility. It is up to them to be producing editions which are accessible, which can be navigated easily, which can be read, or which have like reflowable text if it's an ebook, or the font can be adjusted, and all of this kind of thing. And also they, whoever the audio publisher is, whether it's the primary publisher or a separate audio publisher, also has a duty to produce a, you know, an accessible audiobook, one where the production is good and you can actually hear what's being said and can be sped up or slowed down, or, and again, can be navigated. So it's a bit of a mixture of the two. We obviously, if a publisher published a book from one of my clients and, you know, the ebook was terrible, or, you know, wasn't fit for purpose, we would certainly as agents have something to say about that. But it's basically, it's the publisher's responsibility, though agents will be overlooking that and making sure that wherever we sell rights, so we use, what the way we say it is, if we sell rights to a publisher, we want to make sure that they're being exploited. So we would not give ebook rights to a publisher, for example, if we didn't think they were going to publish and publish well in that format. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
Tied up with that, is there anything that you wish was included in contracts that isn't right now?
Yes, I wish that more clauses protecting authors against generative AI were included in contracts. Now, this is something that as agents we are, wherever we can, getting as much wording in there as possible to stop our clients' books being used or fed into generative AI. And there are obviously AI tools that are good and useful. So publishers might have internal AI tools that like kind of simplify maybe their workflow or their kind of schedules and things like that. And that's fine because you're not kind of feeding something into the machine. But I think it's becoming more and more important to be putting something in contracts to protect authors, because I don't know if you've seen the, I've forgotten the bloody name of it now, the big AI case in the US at the moment, which is like the settlement is going to pay out something mad like $1 billion across however many authors are involved, because their work was taken, was pirated and then taken by generative AI. And the problem there is that if you, so the copyright laws in the US are different to the UK. You have to register copyright in the US. And if you haven't registered your copyright in the US, that's it. Your work has just been absorbed and there's nothing you can do. So it's still a really, like, obviously AI is developing every day. But for us agents, as people who are representing creative people who have like a voice and ideas and, you know, are making a living, or at least trying to make a living off writing, we need to make sure that their work, their voice is protected. So I would love more publishers to be more upfront about the AI they are using and the AI that they will not be using.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I think that I can speak for Lakshmi as well. Like, we're both in the same boat where we're just kind of like, dang, AI is really just taking over right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that writers should feel discouraged right now, or do you have any advice on how to beat that discouragement?
I think it's really hard because publishing is so fickle sometimes. It's so up and down, and sometimes, you know, as agents we can go out with a book and all of the editors can be really interested and you can, you know, have a lot of offers and find a great publisher, and sometimes you just can't find a publisher, and that's because publishers are more risk averse than they've ever been. It costs money for them to make a book. They obviously have to pay the author, and whether that's through an advance or royalties or a mixture of both, but it costs money for them to, you know, hire the staff to edit the book, to design the cover, to print the book, to put the book in a warehouse and store it, to ship it wherever they need it to get to. That all costs the publishers money. And I think that it's just becoming harder and harder to find publishers for books because there is there are a lot of books out there. I think, you know, I'm certainly receiving more submissions from authors than I was 3 years ago. And I think because there is more accessibility and more knowledge about how to reach out to literary agents that maybe people didn't have before. I think it's interesting with publishing because, and I love this, more and more I'm seeing that publishing is being a bit more reader informed. And one very straightforward way for publishing to do that is to seek to publish authors who have had success self-publishing. So I think that it is a really exciting time for writers. It is hard, but I feel like there are so many more routes to market now than there were before. It isn't just a matter of you traditionally publish, you get an agent, you traditionally publish and you do well or you do, less well. You can self-publish, you can build your own communities online, you can, write all kinds of different things and you can experiment, and you can have full creative control over those processes. And it's not one or the other. It's not a matter of you traditionally publish so you can never self-publish, or you self-publish you can never traditionally publish. It's all changeable. You can do whatever you like. I've taken on authors that have self-published before. I represent authors who have separately from any of their publishing deals self-published some books as well. I think that it is a really exciting time to be a writer, getting your work out there, and the communities of people that are out there. And I think that what was I going to say? Oh, it's brilliant, and we might have lost it forever. What was I going to say? Yeah, no, I just think it's I think that it is hard not to be disillusioned sometimes, but one thing that I am seeing, because I'm in a group with all these WhatsApp people, local bookshops that have communities on WhatsApp or online, and all I see every day is all these readers who are so excited to read. They're sharing all their recommendations. I do think that there are so many people so excited for reading now, and it's really, really lovely to see. So it's hard, and it's always been hard, but there feel like a lot more options and things going on, and I love that things are more reader driven than ever before.
Yay, that's super encouraging. I think sometimes it's easy for writers to be like, oh, AI is just going to take over. Let me just roll over. But it's good to know that things
Well,
are.
there's a big thing. There's a big at the London Book Fair this year. There was this big sort of campaign for author, human written books. It's something, and I think that some publishers are even going to start stamping that on their books, like human written. People don't want, and I've said this so many times, people don't want AI to make their art. People want AI to do all the mundane tasks and make life easier. They don't want it taking the tiny bit of joy we have in this hideous dystopia we live in and sucking it away. We want it doing things sorting out the washing, or organizing a calendar, or making sure we know what's going on. So there is a big push against it at the moment, and a push towards human written and human created art.
That's really encouraging, I think, for me and for Madeline. I guess kind of piggybacking off of that, knowing that there is a crave for certain type of books, I was wondering if you had a white whale book. I've only seen that term once, so I'm not sure if it's real, or a dream book, basically, that you hope to find in your inbox one day.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few, and it's something that's been on my wish list for a long time now. Is a book or a series like the Lucinda Riley books, which are about the Seven Sisters series. And it's about these seven sisters, and basically each book kind of explores the background of these sisters, because they were all adopted into this family, so they've all come from slightly different places, and each book kind of looks at the sister now, but then goes back into their history. So it's kind of like dual timeline, and they're just really gorgeous, sumptuous, brilliant books about women's lives across the world, and they're really beautiful. And I would just love something like that, because it's the kind of thing I like to read. But what I'm looking for all the time really changes. But what I really want at the moment is something darker in romance, but not dark romance. I want horror romance, or monster romance, something like that, just because my tastes naturally steer a little darker. And that's not to say I don't represent things that are, you know, lighter and nice as well, but I've got the kind of reputation in the industry and in the agency, I should say, for being, oh, this is really dark, send it to Fran, because I've got quite a high tolerance for horrible things. But I really love romance, and I really love love stories as well. So I would love something that's kind of like, you know, really genuinely romantic, but also sort of horrifying as well.
How do you think you got that like reputation? Were you always just kind of steering the darker route ever since you were a kid, or like what made you interested in more darker or more dark?
Yeah. I've always been that bitch. Yeah, I've always been that weird, spooky bitch. But do you know what it is? I think it's because I always really loved history and old things. Like that kind of you into a bit of a weird space sometimes, because you're looking at where people lived and died, and there's so much like history in England as well, of like just weird creepy things and old castles obviously, and things like Tower of London and all of there's where did I go the other day? So I went like 20 minutes down the road the other day because I got a book from the library that was about weird places in Lincolnshire, which is the county I live in, and I just like spent the day just like driving to all these strange little places. And one of them was like a little it's called Lobb's Pound, and basically what it is it's when I drove past it like about a year ago, and I was like, what is that? It looks like a bit of a church or something, but it isn't. What it is it's just old building, and when you look inside, because it's got like kind of like bars on the front of it, like on the door, when you look inside there are 3 seats and like shackles on the walls. And I found it in the book, so I went to look at it properly. And what it was is it was used for like people that were drunk and used to cause a nuisance. So after the pubs closed back in the old days, you know, whenever, like 1700s or something like that, they would go and collect the drunk people who would cause a nuisance and just lock them up in this little pound overnight. And it's just weird because they're actually locked, they're actually shackled, like, you know, with their hand. And so I think it's just weird little things like that I see, and I'm just like, oh, wonder what horrible thing happened there. And my brain's always kind of gone to that place of, you know, there's such weird history everywhere, and I'm just naturally drawn to kind of the darker side of it, I guess. You know, and I love kind of stories as well that are like, oh, imagine if this horrible thing happened in this place, and I'm like, yeah, imagine, that'd be great. Yeah, so I think it's a problem with me. Yeah.
Well, that's super interesting to know, and I'm sure like the watchers are going to be excited, or your fellow horror fans. I think this kind of leads into another question that I'm sure many querying authors who query you have. Like we hear a lot of literary agents looking like to represent people, but who also write their own stories. And I was wondering, could you speak a little bit to if you've ever written, or if you think you would ever go down that route?
I don't think so, because I'm like so impatient that I've started to try and write things before, but I'm just like, God, it's just so long. How does anyone do it? Like, and I'll start with like loads of energy, and then I'll just like go for a drive or go and sit in the garden or walk the dogs or whatever. And I think it's just like I don't have the brain to do that. But I'll tell you what, like I think this is why I was so drawn to being an agent, because all of my roles in publishing actually have had a more creative angle. So when I was working in, say, sales at a publisher, that's the best job ever, because what you get to do is you get to like talk about the books that the publisher is publishing, and do it in a creative way. And quite often I would do that, like I would lean into like a darker thing, like, oh, I was watching this on telly the other day, and did you hear about this horrible thing that happened? Well, this book is kind of like that, you know. Or if something's going on just more broadly in the wider world, you know, you can kind of touch on that a little bit. But I do it all the time when I'm sending out books to publishers from my clients. You know, I spend an awful lot of time writing a pitch, and increasingly now I'm trying to make the pitches more visual. So I might say, oh, here are some kind of inspirations for the characters, and it will be people that me and the author have found online or whatever, but we'll also maybe put together a little mood board of like the vibe, or and I'll spend ages and ages thinking about comps, and sometimes that comp will be not just a book or a list of books. It'll be this book with this TV with this picture of this really creepy abandoned house I've just found on the internet, with that feeling when you realize you fucked something up and your stomach dropped, like this horrible whatever it is, like claustrophobic kind of anxiety or whatever, and then people are like already shaking before they've even opened the book. But it gives you a kind of idea of what someone can expect. And obviously I've just given a really horrible example, but it can also be like that feeling where like you take the Christmas decorations out and put them up, and that kind of smell, and then paired with you're going to stick the holiday on the telly and you're going to do this and whatever else it is, you're creating a feeling before you even sort of go into the book. So though I don't write, I do write kind of materials to present books to people, and I think that kind of ticks my little creativity box almost. I'm very happy for my clients to do the actual writing, and then I'd like to sort of pick out, these are the little bits actually that I think are going to tantalize a publisher or a reader, so I'm going to put them front and center. Because also as writers, I have this all the time, sometimes like you guys don't know or don't realize that you've got a really great, brilliant, unique hook in there, because you're so hyper focused on like a different part of the story that is like the bit that you're interested in. And it's about teasing that out so you can find the widest audience possible, tick as many boxes as you can possible. If it's got romance in there, if it's got pets in there, if it's got a countryside setting or a big old house or whatever it is that you think readers are going to resonate, and just like putting that stuff front and center.
That's awesome. So speaking on more of like what you're looking for, we noticed that you weren't on manuscript wish list. Is there like a regional thing that happens with manuscript wish list, or anything in particular? Or is it just
I thought I was on it. That's interesting.
Oh,
who knows? Well, what I tend to do with my my wish list is I try to update them on TikTok. So I'll do a video saying what I'm looking for, and I'll also do share that to Instagram as well. And then what I tend to see is that it gets picked up by someone like Manuscript Wish or wherever it is, because I see my name coming out in, I think you can like subscribe to emails and things that go out and update people. So I do see it on there, but I don't know. I'm not on Manuscript Wish list. Maybe they've had enough of me and taken me down. Who knows? But yeah, no, I try to, whenever I've got a new wish list clear in my head, I'll put a video out and hope that people find it. And also sometimes I get submissions based on old manuscript wish lists I've put out, but I still like to see those, because it makes me know that people are kind of finding the kinds of things I'm looking for. And also because I've got certain tastes, even if it's like an old wish list, I'll still be sort of interested in all those things,
Yeah, that makes sense. So also with your wish list, I'll be honest, I just lost it. So sorry about that.
I can't remember what's on the most recent one anyway. A Lucinda Riley book, like I mentioned. What else is on it? It's anyone's guess, isn't it? I can't remember.
Oh, well, you're closed right now for submissions, correct?
I'm closed at the moment, yeah. Well, I'm catching up, so I'm catching up with the submissions that I've got. I got a lot. Last time I opened, I got a lot, and I think that's because I was doing the wish lists, people could see like really clearly what I was into. And now as well, because I'm taking on more clients, because I've only been doing it 3 years, but people can see the books I have taken on starting to be published. So that's like a real visual kind of idea of the kind of tastes I have as well. But yeah, I'm closed at the moment while I catch up, because I got loads. And then I'm hoping to reopen sort of late summer, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
do you have advice? I mean, since you are considered like newer at agenting, or wait, right? 3 years is how long
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have any advice for maybe people who are interested in becoming a literary agent one day, or any advice on what different paths they could take?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is really important actually, because the publishing industry is very, very like insular, and it's incredibly difficult to get into. When I got into the publishing industry, I kind of did a sidestep because I was working at RNIB, the Royal National Institute for Blind People, and I kind of sidestepped because I had these skills that didn't currently have in the publishing industry. So I knew how to kind of like manipulate a digital book file, for example. I knew how to like work with tags, and I knew how to, you know, work with a digital file of text like in a book format and what it should look like and how to make it accessible. And that's how I sidestepped, because at the time when I moved into publishing, that was the time when ebooks weren't standard. So there were big backlist projects by bigger publishers to get all their ebooks out. So a fun fact is that one of the first ebooks I worked on, or one of the first series I worked on, was the Game of Thrones books, because they were first published like in the 90s. And then it wasn't until whenever I started, which was what, 2011, or what, maybe a bit earlier than that, that they were doing their project to like make sure that everything they had was available in ebook as well as in physical book. In terms of kind of getting into the industry as an agent, the best way to do it is to look for agent assistant jobs. But in like, aside the things that's going to make you stand out in an agent assistant job isn't all the stuff about, oh, I love books and whatever. I mean, obviously you need to love books, and you need to you need to read widely, you need to all those things. We're going to take that as standard, but you've also got to just assume that everyone else applying is going to talk about how much they love books, right? The thing that makes people stand out, and I can't talk agenting specifically, but like hiring, but I did do a lot of hiring when I was working in publishing, and it will be the same for agenting, because if I was hiring someone now, this is what I would be thinking of, is what transferable skills does this person have? So when I was hiring in publishing, the people who had, you know, floated around like, oh, I've been writing for this magazine and I've been doing this, and I'm like, well, you probably want to be a writer, don't you? You probably don't want to work in publishing. But the people that used to stand out to me would be people who had like worked in a pub or worked in a shop, or like, you know, worked on a like complaints line on the phone or whatever, because I knew instantly that those people knew how to talk to other people, understood about customer service, understood about timelines, understood about logistics, knew how to handle money, all of these kinds of things that are like really, really important. Because although agenting is a lot of kind of reading, there are it's also, again, a job. It's a business. You know, you have to be able to sell books to make money, and then what you're going to be doing is looking at contracts. You're going to be thinking about strategy for your authors. You're going to be, you know, keeping in touch with all the publishers and finding out what they want. And if you're not the kind of person who is comfortable in those situations, then it's not impossible, you know, if you're really reclusive, but it just makes it a little bit easier if you are able to like have and build those relationships. So for me, look at the agent's assistant jobs, because those are ones where you'll really learn all the kind of basics of things. But in the meantime, while you're waiting to do that, get that customer facing experience in work. And it doesn't matter what it is, but you want to be able to demonstrate that you can talk to people. If you've had any kind of experience talking about like, or working through contracts or working through schedules, or all of these kinds of things that are like very transferable skills wherever you work, whatever industry you work in, highlight those, because those are the things actually that agents will want you to like, they'll want you to just understand how to manage business day-to-day things. And then the other stuff, the fun stuff, it's still there, the reading, you know, they're talking to authors and they're making plans and stuff like that, but you have to get the kind of fundamentals there.
I think that's really encouraging to hear because, like, oftentimes maybe other people have this experience where I'll look back at jobs I did when I was younger and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can never put this on a resume. Like, this has nothing to do with anything else. So that's really encouraging to hear that
Yeah,
that's,
it's all really useful, but you want to know, because it is hard. It's hard work. Like, you want to know that someone's going to graft a little bit, that someone's going to like not like look at something and go, well, actually, I don't want to do that because it's beneath me. You know,
yeah.
we I don't, at the agency we don't have none of the. We've got 4 agents, and none of us have assistants. We do all of our own admin. We manage all of our own clients. We do all of our own contracts. We do all of our own like foreign rights sales and things like that. We do it all ourselves, and it is really, you need to be able to understand all of those things. It's really, really important. So yeah, it's so valuable having those skills.
Is it intentional that none of you have assistants, or do you think it's something you'd ever be open to?
I don't think we have like enough. Yeah, at some point, I'm sure we've had assistants in the agency in the past, but at the moment, we're just kind of managing it all ourselves. And the thing is we have like team meetings and we talk amongst the team a lot. But yeah, I mean, it might be something that changes in the future, but for the time being, no, we haven't had anyone for a while. Sometimes we get like someone doing work experience or something like that. And we obviously, wherever possible, try to sort of get out and about talking to people who are either aspiring authors or aspiring to get into the publishing industry. But yeah, who knows? Maybe in the future.
Nice. So then you're probably combing through all of those queries on your own, all of the submissions, things like that. So I'm sure that you are very aware of Query Tracker Premium. How do you feel about that?
I feel mixed about that because I get it. Like, I love data, information. I just think it's really interesting. And I didn't know what it was because people used to come in my lives and say, oh, you're only 3 away from my query. And I'd be like, how the fuck do you know that? Like, what? And I'd look and they were right. And I'd be like, oh my God, how do you know that? And then someone who shall remain nameless sent me like a little kind of video screen grabby type thing of what it looks like for authors, and I was like, oh my God, well, no wonder everyone's going mad, because it's like you can just see it all, and you can see like me or another agent like creeping up towards your query. And I think that it's fine, but what I say to people is, since I found out about that, do I look at my queries in order? Do I bollocks? No. I just look at whatever takes my fancy, because I can't bear it. I can't bear someone being like, oh my God, you're really close to it, and then getting all het up. And I think that if an agent reads everything in order, then yes, but it can't tell you like exactly why someone's passed on something. It also can't tell you when someone's actually looked at it, only when they've made a decision on it. Because I quite often will open a query because, I don't know, the author sent a message and I need to look at it a bit quicker or whatever, but it's not always indicative of what we're looking at or what we're thinking about. But also, I know that a lot of agents will go into their queries and they will do kind of searches. So, for example, I don't personally represent nonfiction. So I might go into my queries and look for anything, search some keywords that are in like memoir, for example, of things trying to sneak through as fiction that aren't fiction. And then I can pass on those because I don't represent those things. And I also don't represent like YA or kids books or picture books. So I can search keywords for those, and then I can pass on those as well. Do you see what I mean? So you might see your query here and I passed on all of these up here, and you think, oh, I've been skipped. This is another one. I've been skipped. And someone said it to me on my live the other day. Someone who comes a lot was like, I'm really sad, Fran, because you skipped my book. And I was like, I haven't skipped your book. I've just read another one above it. I've read another query above it. So I think you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. I think that it's maybe useful on one hand for seeing, what kinds of things are getting called in, what kind of genres an agent is maybe resonating with a little bit more. But ultimately, it's all going to come down to the voice. And just because I've called in, 10 horror books in a row, and your horror book is next on the pile doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to, because all of those books will have been called in because I've loved the writing, I've loved the premise, and I've loved everything about it. So it's not kind of a guarantee that the next thing will kind of work. I think it's interesting, but I also think it's a slippery slope to driving yourself absolutely mad as an author. So I would say take it with a pinch of salt. If you love having access to all that data, fine, but I'll literally tell you, I've like had this many submissions in this genre, I've had this many in that genre. You know, it's not a secret, but also it's not, you can't draw any kind of lucid conclusions from it as a writer, I think.
That's super helpful to hear as querying authors. I was also wondering, like, what's your process when you start a query? Like, do you read the query letter? Do you dive directly into the work? And what's something that excites you and what's something that kind of typically turns you away?
So I always, so I have my own prejudices, if we like, right? And I don't mean, I know that's a sort of horrible word to use, but it's the easiest way to describe, like, I might see something and be like, oh, for God's sake, like, I don't, like, it might be a certain genre that I've seen a lot of and I'm just a little bit tired of, or whatever it is. So what I do is I just don't look at anything. I open the query and I scroll immediately down to the sample, and Query Tracker is quite good because you can collapse all those fields, so I can't see anything. So I scroll just down to the sample and I read the sample, and I read the sample for as long as I want to read the sample for. I don't necessarily read the whole lot. I read it until I want to stop reading. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to read the sample blind. I'm trying to read it without any kind of ideas of what the book is or who the author is or what the plot is. I want to read it just as a piece of writing on its own, and things I want to be able to tell from that. And these are all things that are like little mini ticks in my head of like, I want to know what genre it is. So if I'm reading it and going, oh yeah, I can tell this is a romance because of the voice and because there's a meet cute and all of these things, you know, whatever it might be. Or if there's like a sinister feeling, I might think, oh, I wonder where this is going to go. Is it like a psychological thriller? Is it horror? You know, I want to have a strong sense of the writing and the genre because I, you know, represent books that are firmly in a genre. But I'm mainly looking for a really great voice that I want to keep reading. Once I've read what I want to read, I will always go up and have a look at the query letter, just in case anything in there piques my interest. As in, maybe it's someone saying, you know, you asked me to query you with my next project because the first one wasn't right. But, you know, just having a check and just seeing who this author is, what they're all about, what the book's about, if I've heard from them before, that kind of thing. I'll look at the query letter. And if it's a book at that stage that I'm interested in potentially seeing more of, I will, but I've got questions about it, I will go and read the synopsis. And there's no such thing as a spoiler in a query. We want to know it all. If I don't want the spoiler, I won't read the synopsis. I will read the synopsis if something is kind of missing for me. So for example, the book might open with someone and I might think, I'm not sure if they're the main character or not. So I might go to the synopsis to check if there are more main characters that haven't been mentioned elsewhere. So that's the kind of order that I look at things in. And if all of those things add up, then I will call in a full manuscript from that author. So it's the three things I'm looking for are voice. Do I like, on a very basic level, do I like the writing? Hook. You know, what's the hook, and do I feel confident about selling this to a publisher? What's the thing that makes it unique and different? And is this author kind of, you know, the person to be writing this book, and why now? And execution, because sometimes you might have the voice and the hook, but for whatever reason it just isn't working in the actual like writing and telling of it. So I sort of have those things in my mind and I go voice, tick, yep, hook, right, yep, I can see the market for it, and execution, yep, all those things are together, I'm going to call in full manuscript. So those are the three things that I'm thinking of when I'm reading a submission.
That's awesome. Lots of different agents seem to have different answers, so it's nice to
Yeah.
know to say about that. What do you think is probably the hardest part about being an agent? Is it combing through all of those queries, or is it something else?
No, the queries are like, I mean, the queries are long, obviously, because there's a lot of them, and you want to give each one like a decent amount of time to consider it, because I'm super aware of how much time people put into their queries. And how much is like riding on it emotionally for them. And I'd like to say as well, it is like quite emotional for me sometimes as well, because I can see how much people want things. But so I've forgotten a question. Sorry, what's the question?
The hardest part about being an agent.
But yeah, the querying part, that's okay because I kind of know what to do and what to expect. There's like a beginning and an end. Do you know what I mean? The hardest part, I think, is just, I mean, A, finding a publisher for books sometimes is just incredibly difficult. But B, like making sure that the publisher and the author are aligned with what's happening, and what's going on. Because the hardest part is when there is a party in the, you know, in the whole grand scheme of things that isn't communicating like what the plans are, whether they think something's going all right, what they're doing, all of that kind of thing. And it can be incredibly frustrating for a writer to have gone through this whole process and then feel like they're kind of like falling down at the last hurdle almost. So the hardest part is just keeping everyone's ducks in a row. Because I have some authors who are incredibly, you know, well organized and know exactly what's going on, and I have some that are way less organized. So just keeping track of what's going on and where, making sure that everyone is clear and what the plans are. It's kind of like just spinning a lot of plates. So I just use, like, I use Trello, I use my calendar, like I've just got things written down everywhere because I don't trust my puny little brain to be able to like cope with it all. But the hardest, yeah, that's the hardest part. And I think that it's obviously hard as well if you've got a client and, you know, their book doesn't sell, or maybe their publisher doesn't want to recontract them, or like there are going to be shit things that happen along the way, and those are hard. And I feel, you know, whenever someone passes on a book that I've sent out on submission, I feel it as well. Like I get upset because I'm like, well, why don't you love this book that I love, you know? And it does feel personal, and you're working with these authors as well, and you know them and you get to know them, and that is hard. But I feel like that kind of, it's almost less hard because you're in it together. You know, there's sort of like two, you want the same thing and you're kind of going for it. So I think the hardest part is literally just juggling everyone and everyone else's mad brains and mad plans, and making sure that everyone's on the same page, and also making sure they listen to all my mad ideas as well, you know. So yeah, it's a lot.
I have time for one more question. I know
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
okay. I asked you this in your live. Actually, could it be two more questions if they're
Yeah, of
quick?
course. Yeah, go for it.
So I've asked you two questions in your live that I just really wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about. And one of them was about like names and choosing names for characters, and how maybe some diverse authors or authors from non-English backgrounds might choose names that are unfamiliar to English readers, and how like maybe they might feel deterred from that. And I was wondering if you could speak to that at all, kind of repeating what you said in your live, if you don't mind.
I can't remember what I said in my life, but what I will say now is that if someone is frightened about using, just for argument's sake, like a Nigerian name, when everyone is reading fucking romantasy with like names with no vowels and can manage it completely fine, you know, I just think it's a like, name your character, give your characters the name that represents who they are the best, you know. Similarly, you know, you would never want a writer to like change their name for the front cover of a book for fear that people wouldn't be able to, like, that's the problem with the fucking reader. It's not a problem with the writer. Do you know what I mean? It makes me really cross when people are like, well, I didn't know how to say it. It's like, just read it, just bloody read it out, have a go. If you got it wrong, Google it. You know, we've got the world at our fingertips here. You can learn how to say something. Give your characters the right name for your characters. If that character is, you know, a character that is authentically, shall I say, diverse, and you're not just kind of like chucking them in there because you feel like you need a diverse character, give them a name that reflects that, you know. So use the right names for the right characters.
Yay. Thanks for saying that. I think it can be really easy as like authors of color maybe to not feel like we can put in names that are like hard to pronounce. And as somebody with the name Lakshmi, like it meant so much to hear you say that in your live, and I wanted
And
to...
I really worry though, because when I like, because if I have questions and I'm always kind of like guessing how to say people's names, and I was saying yours slightly wrong, and I'm just like, I'm always like, I'm so sorry if I'm saying this wrong, I'm so sorry, because I grew up as like, my name isn't that like unusual anymore, but it was when I was growing up. Like, you didn't have a lot of Francescas, and it's because my my dad is Italian and he gave me like a big long Italian name, and but no one could say it. And like I remember being like much younger and being places, and I would mumble my name because I was so worried about it, and everyone would think my name was Jessica because I'd be like Jessica, and they'd be like Jessica, and I'll be like, yeah. And then do you know what I mean? And it's like that fit. So just like, it's easier said than done, and it might take you a while to get there, but just like be bold and authentic with your character names. Like all names are valid and okay. And I get it because I've been that person who's been worried about their own name.
Yay. Thank you for saying that and for sharing your own
Right.
experience as well. And another thing I wanted to ask, I asked you this in your live. As authors, it could be really easy to think we need to fall into a format and like look up the Save the Cat and think, okay, it needs to be this percent. Let me do the math really quick. And can you speak a little bit to like being authentic and kind of following your writer voice while still knowing the norms of the industry?
Yeah, so it's not even the norms of the industry, right? It's like when you read something like Save the Cat, or there's another one called Into the Woods, and I've forgotten the author of that one, but that guy's like a script writer. We all know the shape of the story, and I think that like yes, you can read the kind of like what's the words? You know, the structure behind it, and you can learn about it, and writing is a craft and you can get better at it. You know, we know that it's something that if you practice like any other thing, any other piece of art, you will improve at it. But everyone knows the shape of a story. Like actually if you're reading something and you get to like, for example, you know, you're reading the first bit and nothing's happened, you're like, where's the inciting incident? And you might not use those words in your head, but what you're asking yourself is, why are we starting the book here and what's going on, you know? So be aware of your inner kind of storyteller, the inner person who has watched all those films and read all those books and watched all that TV and just like knows the shape and structure of a story. And I can't remember which book it's in, but there's one like that where it's literally just changes like, you know, this character you know, their parents die or they lose something, and then they get to this point and they gain something, and then they get to this point, this other thing happens. And actually when you look at story structure, it's very, very similar throughout. So I think write your story as you write it, and when you are coming back to it and you are getting feedback, anyone reading that will like know those kind of like story notes, if you like, and so do you as well. You know when something has to be happening. Sort of just believe in your own kind of arc, if you like. You know that things have to be happening, but you don't have to like obsess over the kind of little details. You need to focus on getting your voice, making your characters authentic. If you're writing something commercial, making sure there's a, you know, a really pacey killer plot in there as well for people to get their teeth into, and do all the things you do, and all of that stuff, it can be fixed later. Concentrate on writing in your authentic voice and trust your own instincts for how to present the story.
Thank you so much. That's like such helpful advice. I know I, for one, am like, oh, I didn't like do this one part. I should go back and fix it. So sometimes that keeps me from writing the full story.
Yeah, you've got to get it written, and then you can go back. Do you know what I mean? You got, so there's no rush with it. You can go back and do as much as you need to do to it, but get it down on the page.
That's super helpful advice. And thank you so much for being willing to go over time as well. I know we said this would end after
Don't worry. No, don't worry at all.
We really, really appreciate you being on. Your first literary agent. Sorry, Madeline. I think you were saying something.
No, I was just going to say thank you too. But we're very happy and excited about this. So thank you.
Oh,
yes,
brilliant. And I just want to say as well, thank you for being so supportive of me. Like, it is like, I know that people think that literary agents are on this sort of pedestal, but it is you know, we're also people. I always, when I do a talk, I'm like, what is a literary agent? And I list all the things they do, and then at the end I always say, a person doing a job. Please remember we're people. So no, I appreciate your support, and as well, it's you know, it is it's lovely to be able to have these conversations with people and understand what authors are worrying about, understand what readers are into. You know, it's all really brilliant work for me, and you know, for the wider industry as well. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so excited that you were on.
But yeah, no, it's been really, really lovely to meet both and chat, and yeah, we'll be into, you know, just drop me a line if you need anything at all.
Wonderful. Yay. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. And yeah, speak soon then.
Yes. All right.
All right, bye. Have a good day. Bye.
We hope that you guys enjoyed that interview we had with Francesca Riccardi from Kate Nash Literary. It was so much fun interviewing her. She's so great. So please check out her TikTok, which will be linked below.
Make sure that you're following us on all of our socials and that you like and comment any questions that you have for future agents. We would be more than happy to oblige. So, bye!
Yay. Okay, I think that was fire.